We are going to call this meeting to order at 6:03. I apologize for the 3-minute delay here. We were trying to get connected. I want to say good evening to the School District of Indian River County, parents and community members. Thank you for joining us remotely as a result of the public health emergency that exists in the state of Florida arising out of COVID-19 in light of the guidelines established by the Centers of Disease Control for the protection of all members of the community. The school board will be holding our meeting in a different format tonight. The school board and district staff need to continue to perform their essential functions in a manner consistent with law and school board policy and with the authority granted by the executive order issued by Governor Ron DeSantis, including Executive Order 20-69 regarding local government public meetings, and the school board is to conduct this meeting using communication with media technology. Tonight's school board meeting will be conducted in a manner that minimizes the number of individuals in the room at one time. Currently, we have board member Mrs. Justice. We have Superintendent Dr. Moore. We have board attorney Mrs. Diagresta. Our public information officer, Kristen Maddox, and then also in the background you will see our sound technology coordinator, Brandon, and then myself you will see on the screen. And we are present in the Joe N. Idolette Jr. Education Room. Staff members will be asked to join us one at a time throughout the meeting to ensure that we meet according to the CDC guidelines. This evening, school board members Mrs. Rosario, Mrs. Berenborg, Dr. Schiff are participating by live stream technology. Good evening, ladies. Everyone in the community was invited to participate in this meeting by watching live stream on the district YouTube channel. For those without internet access and/or wanting to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting, our lobby area is open and allows for viewing of the meeting on a video screen, keeping in mind that no more than 10 may gather in a group and everyone must be at least 6 feet apart. So at this time, we are going to get the meeting started. So I would like you to please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. So at this time, board members, we are going to adopt the orders of the day. Are there any items that board members wish to move from consent to action? Dr. Moore, I believe you have requested that we move consent 7A to action. Is that correct?
Yes, the item from Human Resources, the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, so we will move that. So I need a motion as amended.
Move approval.
Mrs. Justice? Hands up if you second.
Second.
Dr. Schiff with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, ma'am.
Dr. Schiff, would you like to speak to your motion? Any further discussion on this? Okay. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Mrs. Esplin. Okay, we are moving on to presentations. I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Moore. Or do you want me to? You don't have any presentations tonight? Okay. It's my understanding we had a video?
Yeah.
No? Okay. All right. That is understandable. So we are going to
Mrs.
move,
Zorp?
yes.
Can I intervene for 1 second? I think there was a slight error earlier. I just want to correct for the record.
What's
The
that?
item that you said, Dr. Moore wanted to move from consent to action, you said 7A. It's actually 8A.
8A.
Just want to reflect that in the record.
Okay. Thank you. 8A.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't have any, I mean, I don't have a request to move anything from consent to action. I did have 2 items that I was hoping that Mr. Fagan would speak to with regard to the items in consent. Would this be an appropriate time to ask, or
Why don't we get
should we
to
wait?
the consent agenda and then we can have that discussion there.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
At this
Thank
time,
you.
what we're going to do is we're going to move into the citizen input. The public was providing an opportunity to offer public comment by emailing comments to a specific email address for this meeting. All emails received by 12 p.m. today were provided to all school board members and the superintendent prior to the meeting so that we could review them, and the emailed comments will be attached to the meeting minutes. For those without internet access, we will receive their public comments in person. Those community members are in a room or rooms outside the meeting room and will be brought into the meeting room. This is a little redundant, but we are in a meeting. Keeping in mind that the CDC requirements of not more than 10 individuals in a group, and everyone must be at least 6 feet apart. I do not believe we have any written comments. Is that correct? From email? Nothing for email. Okay. But we do have one individual that is here for public comment. Okay. Okay, so we'll save that for that time. Can we check and make sure there's not any individuals in the lobby that would? Okay. Okay.
May I ask a point of clarification, please,
Yes.
Mrs. Swark? I recognize that these circumstances are different than normal, but our customary procedure is that if someone wanted to speak, they would have to come in before the board meeting began and submit something for discussion. If there was someone who just walked in the lobby now and just said they wanted to speak, but they hadn't submitted for comment, would you have allowed them to speak? I'm just curious. I understand we're in an interesting time, but we
Right.
have board policy that's kind of handles how we handle it.
I think if they had their form and everything, during this awkward moment, there's definitely room
And
for
my
leeway.
suggestion would, I agree, and my suggestion would be, we changed some policy today to be more respectful of some of the different accommodations we've had to make. If that's an accommodation you plan to make in the future, then I think we need to change board policy to be in alignment with that.
Okay, I agree. Thank you. Okay, so I am not seeing any others. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we are going to move on to consent agenda, the approval of the consent. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Second,
Mrs. Barrenborg? That's what I heard. Okay, so I have Mrs. Justice, and then Mrs. Barrenborg, and then Mrs. Rosario. Mr. Fagan is here, and so he can answer your questions.
The comment that I'll make tonight as far as the consent agenda is concerned is that I'm excited that we'll be signing a collective bargaining agreement with our union, and I look forward to moving forward with them,
Okay,
building new relationships.
thank you. Mrs. Barrenborg? Any comments?
No, I believe we moved that to action, so I don't have a comment at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know Mrs. Rosario had a question for Mr. Fagan?
yeah, Mr. Fagan, we approved, can you hear me?
Yes,
You can
very
hear me.
clear.
We approved in the consent agenda, financial statements for the month of January 31st. Though I know the answer to this question, I'm going to ask for Mr. Fagan to please explain to the public why we are now in April approving financial statements for January. And then I'm also going to ask him a follow-up question with the RFP for the tile flooring.
Yes, ma'am, through the chair. The reason the agenda item for April 14th today has the January financial statements is because at the end of January, it takes us approximately 15 days to complete that work. So that puts us into the middle of February, which therefore means I can't go to any February agendas for any meetings. And in order to meet the first meeting in March, I'd have to be done early to the end of February. Since there was only one March meeting, we missed that meeting, which therefore meant the only meeting I could potentially go to is April 14th. Also,
Thank
on
you.
April 28th, we're bringing February's agendas. We're bringing February financials and February budget amendments.
And by the end of the school year, we would have been complete with all, or as we move into the summer, are we still going to be a month behind?
Yes, ma'am. Up until the point of May, which, and we'll take the May agenda, we'll take May financials, but we will not take June until we take the AFR in September.
Okay. And then my follow-up, thank you, Mr. Fagan. My follow-up question was something that you and I talked about earlier with regard to the RFP of the installation of tile flooring. Their certificate of insurance had 2 areas that were not on their insurance. It was expired. Do we have a follow-up on that?
Yes, ma'am. Through the chair, we have updated certificates, and the explanation is that when this agenda was originally prepared, the vendor turned in his insurance back in February, which therefore his insurance was in force, but by the time we got it to the agenda, it had expired.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for working on that.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
Dr. Schiff, comment? No, okay, thank you. At this time, we need to vote on the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. 5-0. Mrs. Asplin?
I wonder how you did that.
Okay, we're going to move on to our action. And at this time, we had one consent item moved to action, and that was consent 8A. And Dr. Moore, I'm going to let you have the floor on this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, it gives me great honor to bring forward this item to the school board for approval. It is approval of the 2019-2020 collective bargaining agreement between the School Board of Indian River County and the Education Association, IRCEA. So this is an item that we have been working on in partnership with our teachers union in collaboration, and very excited to bring this item for your consideration and approval today.
Okay. At this time, we do have one individual with us that would like to speak during the citizen input portion of this. So, Mrs. Cannon, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good evening. Liz Cannon, President, IRCEA. On September 19th, 2017, I gave a speech encouraging the passage of the collective bargaining agreement. My words were filled with optimism that we were moving toward a new collaborative spirit in negotiations. Unfortunately, we did not achieve that right away. If anything, for more than 2 years, the bargaining process had been broken. I come to you tonight with cautious optimism once again. Dr. Moore, Mr. Bass, and Ms. Ulk have worked hard to regain that broken trust, and I believe we have come together with a good agreement. The caution is not with the new district leadership, but rather with you, the board. Please continue to allow the very capable individuals to continue to have the bargaining power at the table moving forward. By being able to have that collaborative discussion, we were able to settle this contract. This must continue in future negotiations. Over the past few weeks, the teachers, staff, leadership, and students have risen to the significant challenges that the COVID-19 crisis has brought our way. Our compassion and grace have proven yet again how resilient we are. Even in light of no standardized testing, our students are continuing to learn and grow as they never have before. I think it is clear how much our teachers care and want to teach our students. In this unusual ratification, we had 801 teachers vote, or 73% of the members of the bargaining unit, with 99% voting in favor of ratification. Not only was it a strong turnout, but it was a positive message that they all approved of the agreement. So I urge you to recognize the efforts of the district and IRCEA teams and vote to approve our collective bargaining agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. See, I need a motion for approval.
I move approval.
I'll second.
I have Mrs. Justice with the first and then Mrs. Rosario with the second. Mrs. Justice, would you like to speak to your motion?
It's an exciting day in Indian River County. I'm thankful for the leadership working and being at the bargaining table. I've been able to watch some of it as the IRCA does post on Facebook Live. It's been a really interesting learning experience, and I have watched the difference in the level of conversation and collaboration, and I'm just thankful for it. There has never been a time when I have recognized more teachers being my partner in raising my family, my children. So I'm just thankful for my children's teachers, and thankful that we've come to this day, and I look forward to many more.
Thank you. Mrs. Rosario?
Aye. Yes, I wanted to let Liz Cannon know that although she is cautiously optimistic, I am fully optimistic. We wouldn't be able to get here if it were not for the direct leadership of Dr. Moore and, of course, the leadership that Dr. Moore has selected for the positions in which they are. Really, we have great things to look forward to in the future. This is only one step in that direction. So I'm very, very happy that we were able to get to where we are right now. I do have a typo error that I've noticed on the very first inside page. It is page 0 on the very top. It is the only place that has the collective bargaining agreement from 2018. It says 2019, but it should read 2020.
Okay.
I'm not sure what she's looking.
So with that typo, I want to thank you, and I want to thank our teachers. This is a perfect opportunity to thank them from where they are, from where I am to where they are. I honor their hard work, their dedication, and their push through this new normal that we are in. I know that teachers everywhere are missing, loving their kids, near or far, and it is really with a very, very deep heart that I thank them. I thank them for everything. And I know that teachers do not want to go into the summer thinking that they're not going to see their kids before then. So I am just hoping for the best, and I want everybody to stay safe.
Thank you, Mrs. Rosario. Next, we have Dr. Schiff and then Mrs. Barenborg.
Thank you. Echoing, of course, the comments of my board members, I won't belabor that, but to say how delighted I am to have a contract settled inside the year in which that contract takes place. I've only been here a year and a half. I don't know the last time that happened, but thank you to the leadership that made that happen. And thank you to all our teachers who have stepped up in unprecedented times. I wish that I could send emails to each and every one of you, but that's 1,100 emails. And I think I'd be going until the end of the year to get them to all of you. But take this as my heartfelt, dedicated thanks for everything you're doing to step up. I also want to address something that Mrs. Cannon said. And Mrs. Cannon, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your optimism. I'm a little confused what you mean by saying thanks to the leadership, but you're a little concerned that the board might get in the way of that. If there's something that you've heard about that, if there's something that I don't know about that, if there's some rumor floating around, I encourage you to please get in touch with me and let me know that, because I'm not aware of it. And if there's some perception that in some way the board either was getting in the way of this, had the potential to get in the way of this, or tried in any way to prevent the solidification of this agreement, I would sure like to know that. Moving forward, I'm really looking forward to working with Dr. Moore and the leadership team to ensure that every contract negotiation that we move forward into, that the past is behind us, that we no longer operate the way things happened in the past in those contract negotiations, and that we move forward smoothly, gracefully, and to the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Berenborg?
Yeah, same thing with everybody. You know, I'm very appreciative that we've been able to secure a contract this fast. Hopefully next time it will be even quicker. I agree with Dr. Schiff. I don't know of anything and any reason why we would get in the way of future negotiations, so I sure hope that isn't going to happen. And I think, and I've heard very much so, that there is a whole new appreciation for teachers out there with everything that's been going on. So I look forward to that appreciation being going forward with future negotiations, that parents will keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Moore, did you have a comment?
Absolutely. I just wanted to acknowledge the leadership of Liz Cannon and her team. I have had the opportunity for many years to participate in bargaining, and your team comes with solutions, not just barriers, but opportunities to say, consider this, or let's work through this. I want to acknowledge Mr. Bass, Ms. Oak, for their commitment and their willingness to go above and beyond in not only their willingness to have the conversation, but to be creative and set expectation on what this relationship needs to be for us to continue to move forward. As I look at the future, I'm very optimistic, very excited. This money that we're acknowledging or paying teachers is not enough. And let me say that again, it's not enough. The burden placed on teachers, which over the last month continues to be reinforced, the value of what a teacher plays in the life of a child, we can't give you enough money. And I am very excited about the work that this team has done, really to scrub budgets, to look at spending that we could be a little bit more effective in, to increase opportunities to pay teachers, to look at those redundant and overlapping positions, to begin to consolidate, to apply school-based allocations, to begin to maximize opportunities, to acknowledge the impact that you and your colleagues have on the lives of children. So I'm very excited to have this partnership and this relationship with you. I know there are some commitments I still need to bring at the next board meeting, and I will do that. So I want to publicly acknowledge that. I want to assure you that this board has been empowering to me and has stood behind me and has set a very high expectation and have supported me both personally and professionally as I continue to grow in this role as superintendent. So I would encourage you to continue to be optimistic, because I am receiving a great deal of support from this board, upholding the expectation which they initially set upon me applying for this position. So thankful for your team, thankful for the conversations to come. Cannot thank Scott, Mr. Bass, and his team enough. I know Michelle is watching from home. Her commitment and her being so receptive and responsive to you is not something I asked her to do. That just comes from her heart to be in service of you and your teacher. So very appreciative of that. So with that, Madam Chair, I give the item back to you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Cannon, I want to say thank you for your leadership with our teachers and being persistent to do the right thing for them. I know some of those items that are in this contract have been something that teachers have wanted for many years, and within a month, we have Dr. Moore that said, why not instead of why? And just a different mindset that is across this district. It is not it is not something temporary. It's just going to be something that just continues to grow and is, if you all will allow us to earn your trust back, I think that's what we have to do. But I hope this is a step in that direction, that we want our teachers to know that we value each and every one of you. And I think through the workshop today, where we are proposing the millage and trying to go out for that increase, so, or not the increase, but the renewal of that millage, so that we can give those pay increases. That's the heart of this board member right here, is because I know that for many years that you all have been underpaid, and that is one of my goals, is to at least make sure that you're paid with what you're worth. And as everyone else has said over the last couple of weeks, timing's everything on this, right? I think that everyone, all the parents can agree the amount of professionalism and dedication that you all have for our kids is so appreciative. And I just appreciate everything that you all have done, and thank you for being patient with us and allowing us to get new leadership here to get this job done. So I thank you. At this time, we are going to take a vote to approve the contract. So I'm gonna, if you wanna so I can hear everyone, unmute. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. Yay. So at this time, I think, are we going to sign the contract?
Madam Chair, we have 4 brand-new pens up there and 4 signatures to receive. I would recommend that we follow Mr. Bass signs first, myself, followed by you,
Okay.
Ms. Zork, and then Liz. And if we all could just stand behind Liz after she signs, including
6 feet
the
apart.
board members that are here. 6 feet apart. We'll take a picture and acknowledge this occasion. So we'll start. Mr. Bass. Take your pen with you when you're done.
Thank you.
Take my picture.
Ready? 1, 2, and 3. And how about we turn so that we can get the board members in the background? Oh, you're so smart. So if you guys can stand back there.
Yes, stay here.
Hey, everyone. Smile from home.
That's what she had, the job she had.
Ready? 1, 2, and 3. All right.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Watch your step.
So out there.
Got to follow the guidelines. So next is the,
Okay, so that concludes our, we only had that item on the action. So we are moving into the superintendent report.
thank you, Madam Chair. I have a report, as promised, upon taking the role as superintendent, a monthly update regarding the development, implementation of our African American Achievement Plan. So this is an opportunity for me to fulfill that promise. Even in the midst of Corona-19, the expectation continues. So what I would like to do today is to provide what will continue to be the monthly update. This is not pausing the work. This is not saying we can't continue to do it because of the crisis that we find ourselves in. This is us continuing to define a priority and work through that priority. So the African American Achievement Plan, as you know, brought to the board during the second board meeting in February, which was February 25th. That plan was approved by the board. During that presentation, just quickly to review the timeline that we followed leading up to that approval. Prior to approving a number of meetings, collegial meetings with the Joint Committee, the NAACP, in the development of the plan that was approved. When we brought that plan for approval, it included a number of expectations as well as a draft of the report card that we would use, the progress monitoring report card. At that time, because it had not been approved, it was the draft of what that plan would be. So as soon as, even prior to approving the item, you can see that we began to meet with principals on February 20th, looking at the review of the plan and discussing their responsibilities. And there were a number of new responsibilities and a shift of ownership in terms of implementation on our principals. Our principals are closer to our children, they lead our schools, and they play a vital role in the implementation of the plan that has or was developed. On the 25th, as mentioned, the board approved the African American Achievement Plan. On March 2nd, schools created their own implementation plans. So this was a plan that was going to be and is supported by very intimate and unique plans at each and every single school site. Now, in this district now, schools are not or will not function in isolation. We are here to support them, and we are here to be a network and share the great practices that are taking place with all schools. So if we see a great practice that's taking place in Fellsmere, it's the responsibility of the district to grow that practice in all of the other elementaries around the county. That is a sign of a healthy and strong district. So we ensured that they receive feedback from our teams and ensured that we had the opportunities to embed our support into their plans. Then the school district departments updated their plans, were uploaded to the district's webpage. One of the things that I spoke about upon entering the district and in the development of this plan is that we would be transparent. We would make our practice public. All of the school site plans are on our equity page. Our district plan is on that page. So it's opportunities for everyone in the community across the globe to go in and see the intentional work that we are doing as it relates to equity in our district. On 3/12, staff discussed with principals the data requirements and the completion logs. So at that principal meeting, which was one day away from what was the last day that we were actually in traditional school setting, was a principals meeting. And it was an opportunity for us to problem solve, hear feedback from principals regarding how they've developed their plans, address concerns that they may have had regarding implementation, and ensure that they fully understood and were in support of the action that had to take place, and we felt very comfortable. Then, the very next day, COVID-19 closed schools at the conclusion at 4:32, that's the exact time, during a conference call, schools were canceled. We continued to move forward. We continue to work on teams and webinars, collecting information from our principals so we could populate the report card and continue to identify ways to modify this work. So if you look here at the progress report, you'll see it is extensive. It is a great deal of data. 2,000 data measures were captured for the 4 goal areas, 44 different action steps, in addition to the other backup data provided in the progress report. So this is a wealth of information in which we have learned a great deal about previous practice, as well as opportunities to shift or modify practice based on what we learned. You'll hear me say often data should be our superpower. A lot of times, or through this process, we've defined areas to improve by looking at data points that we weren't capturing. What's monitored, what gets done is monitored. And there were a number of key areas that we just simply weren't monitoring. This plan, this report card ensures that we continue to have that monitoring in place. If you look at some of the things that we've learned in terms of areas of progress, participation in extended learning opportunities, participation in extracurricular school activities, school recognition ceremonies, that was something that wasn't being captured, but when we look at that data, we feel comfortable we're moving in the right direction. The reduction in arrest of our African American students, our least restrictive environment percents, employee attrition rate. So we have made some progress, but the progress we've made is not at all where we want to stop. We want to continue to move forward. Opportunities for improvement. This is the opportunity for me to pull out some data points from that extensive report card, not necessarily digging into the report card today because it is extensive, but it does pull out some of the information to highlight our opportunities for continued improvement. When you look at academic performance, 10 to 20% achievement gap depending on that subject area. So if you looked at the civics EOC or algebra or FSA, it varies between 10 or 20%. The gap being the average score of white students in comparison to the average score of African American students, a 10 to 20% disparity or variance, which is not what we want to see. Kindergarten readiness, 64% of white students enter kindergarten ready, where only 43% of our African American students enter kindergarten ready. Tremendous opportunities to evaluate that work and improve that work. Graduation rates, which our board members, a number of you have shared your concerns regarding this variance. 92% of white students graduate, looking at that cohort from when they start 9th grade to 4 years later, compared to 81% of our African American students. We will see improvements in that number this year because of the removal of the state testing requirement. So on both areas, we will see a spike for this particular graduation class. Office discipline referrals, 12% of the total white population have received referrals, where 25% of our African American and black population have received referrals. The suspension data, indoor suspensions, 3% of the total white population received an indoor suspension, doubling it for our black population, 6% receiving an indoor suspension. When you're looking at outdoor, 3% white, and more than double, 8% of our black African American population. Our enrollment in our alternative school, as you can see, that total population is made up of 34% white and 47% African American. Once again, that is not reflective of our overall population. And then teacher demographics, 88.7% of our teaching staff, white, 9.9, 10% African American. So these are opportunities for us to continue to mine that data as we move forward. Now, when you look at COVID-19, it is, as I said, as I began this presentation, it's not an opportunity to pause this work. It's an opportunity to shift. There are some academic points that are in the report card that we will not be able to collect Obviously, we're not having end-of-year exams, so that data point will not be available. The discipline and ESE discipline data, because students are not in school, that data is also not available. The end-of-year data chats at the school or district level, opportunities for us to really shift how we're conducting those experiences. We continue to monitor data. We continue to have conversations with students. We continue to provide the academic counseling. Our school counselors are doing that work now. We continue to look at scheduling and ensuring that students are being placed in the appropriate courses. Because we don't have that end-of-year assessments, it really is an opportunity for us to look deeper into which students, all students, are being placed into which classes. So we will continue to mine this work. We will continue to implement the plan. We know when we update the plan next month, as well as the end-of-year update, that there will be shifts or modifications to the academic reporting components, but that doesn't pause the work. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, looks like we have Dr. Schiff has a comment or a question. Dr. Schiff?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your attention to this work. I appreciate that you're not that nobody is letting the ball drop on that. And first off, I just want to commend that and appreciate finally our attention to this. I want to speak though to some of these percentages because they gloss over a few things. And while I know you don't want to make the table too complicated or the numbers too complicated, there are some ways in which I fear this oversimplifies. For example, when we say office discipline referrals are 12%, the 12% of the total population of white students get ODRs, that minimizes that there's 65% of our population. Whereas when it's 25% of our Black African American population who are getting ODRs, they represent, I think, 27% of our population. So it shifts the way you read the numbers a little bit. And I'm hoping that as we move forward, we'll pay a little attention to that because the numbers in a vacuum are less dramatic and tell us less of a story when we only see the percentage of the total population that the ODR or the ISS or the OSS represents without looking at that in comparison to their percentage in the population and the proportion of that population who are receiving these outcomes. I know I've said this before and I know you get it and I know I harp on it a lot, but I want to make sure that we don't overlook that because when you see something like yes, you see 3% of white students get OSS and 8% of Black students, that makes it look smaller and less significant than it actually is in comparison to the population. And I want to also suggest that when we look at these, if we could break it down by elementary, middle, and high school, because I think that tells us a very different story as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a quick point of clarification. As we drill down with principals and really begin to mine the work, that is the intention, looking at it at a school site level. This is just the approved report card that looks at it from a district perspective, but we are drilling down and developing our principals as true users of data to make informed decisions.
Mrs. Stampier, I see that you're here. Did you have a question or comment?
Through the chair, she's only here to answer a question I may not be able to.
Just in case, okay. Okay, so next we have Mrs. Berenborg.
Sure, thank you. I went through all this data with a fine-tooth comb, and I know that this is just the first time you're giving us all this, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are still doing this, even though everything that's happened. But there are two glaring things. There were several, but there were two that haven't been mentioned yet that I thought I'd bring up. And one is, it seems very high overall, the number of course failures. That seemed very high to me. And then the other one was the number of total arrests is on the increase. Can you speak to either of those or both of those, please?
Through the chair, we are looking at the exact set of data and some of the takeaways that you just mentioned were also takeaways that I had. Matter of fact, we're starting a 10-week series with our principals and assistant principals tomorrow, and we are touching on that first bullet you just mentioned, course failure, looking at our ability to cover the standards and provide high expectations to our students and quality instruction to our students to meet the rigor of the standard, in looking at how we are assessing students aligned to that standard. In addition, in this reality that we're now facing ourselves under Mr. Meyer's leadership, a number of conversations are taking place with principals and principals with teachers regarding how we are grading students. And because of this reality, we're forcing the conversation around just not grading based on the dissemination and collection of work, but ensuring as educators we are providing grades that are aligned to the mastery of the standard. Using the technology to complete an assignment in a language arts course is not an assignment. The volume of work completed is not a standard. The volume of work completed, busy work, is not showing mastery of a standard. So it's forcing us to have meaningful conversations around grading and looking at what we're doing in order to ensure that we're providing the necessary supports, even in this reality, to ensure we're building students up to expose them to the standard. And I'm excited about that. Arrest has been something that's been on my mind since arriving in the district. We have an outstanding relationship with our sheriff's department who are SROs in the majority of our schools, continuing to work with them and ensure that we are on the front end of any behavior that may lead to a negative consequence. I do not want students arrested in schools. Are there times and when that has to be the reality? The answer is yes. But we really need to be proactive in ensuring that we're doing everything possible to ensure that those behaviors being displayed in schools should not lead to an arrest. So we continue to work through and strengthen our systems of support for students to minimize that lifelong impact of an arrest.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. Dr. Moore, thank you for those answers. I will say that just one of the things maybe to look at is what are we doing with our SROs and their education towards working with our administrators on when it's their job and when it's our administrator's job and so and so. I know that there's some training probably needs to take place that probably in the past hasn't been there.
Through the chair, correct. We've had that conversation.
Okay. Next, we have Mrs. Rosario.
Thank you. I have a comment about the slide that was presented on the impact of COVID-19 with regard to the African American Achievement Plan. The first bullet on that slide says that no academic, as a result of COVID-19 and us being home, that no academic outcome measures for the school year have been collected or are not available. And the third bullet on there says no end-year data chats at the school or the district level. I understand the concern. I mean, I understand adding these points on the slide, but the impression is that we are not following up with children's academics, even from afar. And I know that there are always things that we can't do. I understand that it may be a little difficult with the situation that we're facing, especially with regard to their data chats, because they're going to look very, very different, obviously. We don't have children in the classroom. We don't have walkthroughs. We don't have formal observations that we would traditionally have if school were open. But is there anything that we can do to not give the impression that we're not looking at, or that there isn't any academic outcome or measures to be looked at, even through distance learning?
So through the chair, the intention of those two bullet points that you just referenced speaks specifically to the data sets that were identified, not knowing that we would not be conducting FSA or end-of-year exams. So to be completely transparent, we wanted to be out there saying, hey, at the end of the year, the percent of students, white, black, whatever the case may be, who scored proficient, increased or decreased, is no longer an option. When you see the upcoming presentations, we still have data that we could use. We have grades being issued by a teacher. We have feedback from teachers that we correct. We have iReady as an example. So there are data sets in terms of progress monitoring students, but wanted to be transparent that we can't collect because it's no longer available. The data chats and the conversations, those will happen. We'll get that feedback from our students using the technology as we continue to grow our skills and using that technology to ensure principals are receiving that feedback.
Okay, so that first bullet point was really regarding summative assessments. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And also on that same, it says it says discipline and ESE. That refers to one of the areas or goals being collected was data on suspensions of students who were ESE. So we wanted to be transparent and say we also can't capture that because obviously students in schools are, you're not being, the suspensions are not happening. It's a good thing.
Okay.
Mrs. Justice?
Thank you, Mrs. Zork. I'm going to come at this from a little bit of a different perspective because I reviewed this, and one of the things that was really stuck out to me and just in general as we transition to, distance learning or online learning with our students, there are some inequities that we have recognized or that the country has recognized that they have fixed very quickly, such as internet access for children who did not have it before. We have put computers into the hands of students who didn't have access at home with a device. Those were inequities. So when we talk about the achievement gap, to me, as a mom who's had kids in class and I've gone and seen science fair and different things, it's very obvious sometimes when students don't have access to those things at home and they struggle. So really, when we talk about this plan, I'd like to see how we're not going to lose some of the new benefits some of these students have gotten in this type of learning. They now have computers at home. That's amazing. What a window now into their learning at home and access to a device. They now have internet access that has plagued, I know that has been an issue that the African American community has struggled with. I've spoken with different leaders who have said that there are families that struggle with having internet access in their home, and that's available now. So are we going to take any proactive steps in, I'm going to say a few things that will probably sound silly, but I want to, and I want to start a movement to do it. I'd love for this school district to reach out to all of the other school boards and the districts in this state and beg Xfinity to not shut off hotspots for children. I'd like to see this district put devices into the hands of African American children who don't have devices, or any students who don't have the money for a device at home, because I'm a mom of kids and I'm seeing how it's opening a whole new world of learning for my children. They're able to access things and go over things and online textbooks and things that really were stumbling blocks that kids didn't feel comfortable using. We haven't just dipped our toe and we've, cannonballed in, right? So how do we, this is great, Dr. Moore. How do we take some of the glaring things that we know create inequities? I know we can't fix everything, but there are some things we can. So where do we go from here with some of those things?
Through the chair, so one of the things that we do with the team is problem solve and look to identify problems and find solutions before they're actually problems. one of the areas that we identified going through that problem-solving process is the date and time in which we provided technology to a home that had not previously had that technology, and being forced in a situation in which we would be pulling that resource out of the home. And I don't want to do that. And quite honestly, I refuse to do that. We will be accepting a donation at our next board meeting for $60,000, which will buy roughly 351 devices that we will be able to keep into houses. And then we are working through the additional resources to ensure when there is no other device in the home, that we're not removing that tool, that resource for the child, because they've had it for the last 3-4 months, whatever the case may be, but as we roll into the next school year, we will be a district that's not taking away that resource, but keeping that resource in schools.
That's really encouraging. Thank you for that. I'm excited about that. I think that the opportunity for innovation and learning in the school district is just, I think there's really no end to it. And I see this blended model of classroom learning and online learning in the future really being advantageous for a lot of different types of learners. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Schiff? You have the floor.
Behind on my mute button. Couple of things. Yeah, I echo what Mrs. Justice said, and just want to point, a number of years ago, I did some research on blended models, and it turns out that actually blended models, part in the classroom and part online, is empirically shown to be the best delivery method, that where students can get the best of both worlds is actually empirically shown to have the best outcomes. So I'm delighted that we're looking at that, and I know that Dr. Moore, when we spoke previously, and we talked about the high likelihood that we would not get all of these devices back, and then at that time you mentioned the likelihood that we'd be getting a donation to help, because we actually wanted to also leave some of those devices with students who might not return them because it enhances their learning, and we will have a way, not out of our own budget, but from generous community donations to make that up. So appreciate that, and appreciate the attention to how we're going to continue to take the best of both of these worlds. That, however, none of that was why I said I wanted to comment. What I want to do is go back for a minute to the slide that says opportunities for improvement, where you've got a, you say academic performance, that there is a 10 to 20% achievement gap depending on the subject. I wonder, could you speak a little bit to how you got those numbers? Because when I've looked at those numbers in the past, the numbers are much higher, particularly when we look at reading scores and math scores in 3rd grade and in 10th grade, and we see dramatic differences. But all along the line, I'm wondering how, can you speak a little bit to how you got to that 10 to 20% gap?
Through the chair, absolutely. So we're looking at the overall outcome. So when we're looking at reading as a whole, so that would be FSA 3 through 10 reading. Math would be 3 through 8, Algebra 1 and Geometry combined, and then Civics, U.S. History, standalone exams. Part of the issues that we have when you start to look at different sets of data from a district perspective, that is a very big denominator, and then you have to drill down by school site. And I think as you go into the tool, you'll see opportunities, as Dr. McMahon highlighted at the board meeting before we were shut down, that our tool does allow us really to begin to drill down into particular schools and different subsets. So this is data looking at it from the largest denominator possible, looking at the district performance as a whole with the ability to filter through different subsets of data.
Okay. Mrs. Barenborg?
Yeah, one other item I wanted to bring up was under Black colleges, it said there were 6 visits and only 15 contacts. So that's like only 2 to 3 contacts per visit. It seems very costly. Is there a reason why we're not getting that many contacts? Are there not enough educators being graduating from those schools, or what's happening? Do we know?
Through the chair, that was a great conversation we had at the last equity joint committee meeting, looking at that same set of data, and really some problem solving took place of being more proactive, even looking at clubs at our particular colleges, or I'm sorry, both our colleges and our high schools, making sure we have academies or programming at our schools around education. And if we really want to invest in educators as a whole, maybe we should begin to invest in them while we have them as students. Also looking at Indian River State College. Those students, in some cases, are 2 years away from a 4-year degree. In other cases, as soon as they graduate with a 4-year degree, marketing and advertising with them, offering them an advanced contract. All you need to do is graduate, become certified, and we'll offer you a job. So those also are areas that were identified by the Joint Committee. They are not stellar outcome numbers, but those are the numbers. So we need to begin to have those innovative conversations as we had with that Joint Committee. And that is a great example of what I said at the initial meeting. If this plan comes back and that's still an action step and still an indicator, after we have defined it as being a broken process or ineffective action step, not yielding results, then shame on us if we continue to do it. And I think that is a data set that validates to us that we need to challenge the way in which we think to produce a better outcome, because the current practice and the historical practice that we've been using hasn't yielded the result. So why continue to do it?
Okay. All right. I have a question on my attention. I go to the screening of gifted education, and I'm looking at the numbers. Can you talk to me? It looks like 19 students were screened. Can you talk to me about what are some of those barriers and what are we doing to ensure that we have, we're being best by kids on that?
Through the chair, there's a great deal of training that we need to do around Plan B and being proactive and ensuring that we have access and opportunity and awareness. So those numbers, when we went through the plan, really stood out to me. It was an aha moment for me on just another issue of equity in us from a district perspective, being transparent, open, and honest around where we need to improve. And I think that highlights the example of improving your practice by being public with that practice. And it's not a pretty number. It's something we shouldn't take a great deal of pride in. But in order to improve that number, really look at the training and look at the resources that we're providing or awareness around Plan B in order to ensure that we're maximizing the opportunities for students to be assessed for gifted.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments, board members? No? Any wrap-up thoughts, Dr. Moore?
No, that's it. Just excited that we have come this far with this plan. As a simple update, we did submit to the court our progress report that was due. I believe it was, Suzanne, January. When was it due?
March.
Oh, it feels like 3 months ago, but it was submitted on
March 11th, what's the 13th? 13th.
March 13th. March 13th. Well, no wonder I didn't remember, because that
Yeah, we
was the
closed
last
schools that
day.
day. Right, yeah.
I remember that
We
date.
were normal. But very excited that not only did we submit a progress report, we submitted a progress report that was signed by me, the chair, Marshawn Green, of the Equity Committee, and the president of the NAACP. We are in full collaboration. We are completely transparent. There are numbers that we're not proud of. There are numbers that, as leaders in our community, that they are not happy with. but we are really making progress and will provide reassurance to you that we will not allow Mr. Corona, as Mr. Fagan refers to, COVID-19, to stand in the way of the progress that we have worked so hard over the last 4 months in getting this done. Ms. Dampier, your team has gone above and beyond in support of principals and in some cases support and conversations with them to continue to move this work forward, and appreciate the leadership you've thrown around this area.
Okay. Do we have any idea when the next equity committee meeting is? Is it on the
May.
schedule?
It's in May.
It is in May.
Yes, I want to say it's May, May
Okay.
8th.
Through the chair, we'll get that information and
Yeah.
email the board, but I
Okay.
believe
It's
it's
in
May.
It's May 8th or 9th.
Okay,
But
all
I
right,
can,
thank you.
I'll look in my,
Okay, so that wraps up our superintendent's report. We are going to move into, there are no items, do not see any items for discussion, but we will move into school board member matters. And I'll start with Mrs. Justice.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to my children's teachers. Thank you for taking my phone calls, for FaceTiming with my kids, for encouraging them to pick themselves back up when they stumble, and to continue pushing forward. This has been such an amazing learning experience for me and my husband as parents. And it's been really nice to kind of get more engaged with what our children are learning and what they think about it. And I've really enjoyed having them home and doing all of those things. I'm lucky right now I get to work from home, and my husband's working from home, and I don't know if I'm lucky about that right now. I don't know if he feels lucky either. He did a conference call from the driveway the other day. But anyway, I just want to say to parents, I know this is hard. It's been hard for me too. It's a learning curve. It feels every Monday, you know, teachers are changing things right now. So if you're a parent and you're listening and you thought you had it down last week and they've changed some stuff and now it looks different, you can call me. I've worked on making some schedules for the kids. I've worked in our house, and I've shared them with some of my friends. I'm happy to, if you're struggling with a specific issue. I was struggling with a specific issue with one of my children the other day, and I have a friend who homeschools, and I called. And I said, can you help me? I'm available as a mom. I have a second grader, a fourth grader, a sixth grader, and a ninth grader. So literally high school and elementary. It seems that the elementary school children, just from my perspective, are having a harder time. The social aspect, not being able to physically see their teacher. So if you haven't FaceTime with your kid's teacher, that seemed to really help one of the kids the other day. So thank you to our teachers across the district, but thank you very much to my kids' teachers, just from me. And I will continue to say it because you really, truly have been amazing partners in learning how to help you teach my kids. So thank you.
Thank you. It looks like Mrs. Berenborg, did you have a comment, or did you want to go for next for?
Yeah, I just
Board
want to bring
member
up, I'm
matters.
not sure if it's for discussion, but the workforce housing meeting got put off. And I was just curious if anybody wanted to discuss quickly that, could we, you know, put that back on the schedule, even if it means having a virtual meeting, but at least get it out there to start talking about how we're going to come up with this committee?
Any comments?
I honestly would like to wait right now, Terry. I just don't feel like, I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I think that's important, but I think with the budget coming up and with the strategic plan, and if we're going to have some additional meetings for that, I mean, I'm not trying to shut you down, but man, I just feel like right now we've got our hands full, and I don't want to, I feel like this is an issue that needs to be tackled. Maybe we could look at it in the summer. All right, would you be okay with waiting a little bit? I mean, I know it's an issue that needs to be addressed, but there's a lot, there are going to be a lot of things going on. So that's just my thought.
I look at the manpower or man-woman power that it takes to put on a meeting like this, even though it's virtual. It took a lot of time to put this on, and I love the idea and I want to move forward with it. I'm not for sure when it would be a good time. I mean, it could be at the end of June, or no, I'm sorry, the end of May. I'm open to that. just try to get through, the next couple of weeks.
I'm up into that too. I think with staff and different things, I just think they have a lot of new things on their plate, so I just,
I
what do you
mean,
think, Terry?
we could set a tentative for toward the end of May, Terry?
Yeah, I would like to at least get a tentative date, either the end of May or June, one of those.
Okay. All right,
We will do that.
Mrs. Rosario?
I would like for us to consider the timeline that was given to us today for our strategic plan. Dr. Moore has in our strategic plan that I think it's by the end of May. It's in my other book. I can't remember. Dr. Moore, what is the last date on that timeline? Is
Through the
that
chair,
May
it's
8th?
June 8th, something like that.
June 8th, the first board meeting in June.
Or is it June 9th?
I believe it's the 8th.
So I would suggest for us to go into June instead of May, so that we can focus on the strategic plan
Ninth, close.
and whatever discussion sessions that we have on that, so that we don't tie Dr. Moore's hands with planning on moving forward with the strategic plan, and then possibly go into the beginning of June or mid-June with Terry's proposal. As far as planning is concerned, it's really, it falls on Dr. Moore, and right now, I really would like to defer to what would work best in terms of his timeline with some of the other priorities. Not that this isn't a priority, but.
When's our next? So it's April 26th, 28th? I'm close, but I'm just not on the day, am I?
Yeah.
FSBA, I don't think that's something that, personally, we have so much going on. I'm not ready to make that commitment on that.
I'm,
What did you say, Nancy?
You have the May date scheduled, and that can always be changed.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to know to make sure we advise them to change.
Nancy is talking about the FSBA training in May, which can be changed, and I need to get consensus tonight that we can change that date, because I personally don't think that this is the time to be tying up staff, and because we need Suzanne to be here for that too.
That's fine.
Okay. We'll just take it off the agenda right now, and we'll plan it in the future. So Mrs. Berenberg, let's go back to her question so we can settle that on, Mrs. Berenberg, what's your suggestion on the date for the tentative meeting that you had?
I'm going to defer to Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore, what would you think?
Through the chair, my recommendation would be that first week in June would be fine. I think the board needs to keep in mind, we're going to go through a very hefty budget process, a very hefty strategic planning process. We will complete the 100-day plan, which will result in shifts and moves across the entire organization. So there is some heavy lifting, very exciting lifting that needs to take place. All of it overlaps or connects in some way. But I know my need from feedback from you moving through the next several months is going to be critical if we're going to get this right in all three of those areas: the realignment, reorganization, the budget, and the development of our strategic plan. Three separate action items all linked together. So that is some of the most important work that we need to be doing, and it all will take place in the next several months. So I think when we hit June, all of that work will be the budget, still work to be doing, or, well, maybe the budget work hadn't even started in June because we won't have it. But the strategic plan, the realignment, will be well on our way by June in that time. And I think as we move into the summer, the folks that we need to be partnering with external from our organization will probably be in a better place at that time to participate. I'm sure the reality right now is a little unknown, and their availability might be they may not be as available as we would like or need them to be to fully participate.
You think July,
No, I think June is fine.
June,
Yeah.
late June? Okay, so it seems like, are we saying the second meeting in June?
Yep.
And that, can I have a date on that? Because I'm going to say about the 26th, but 23rd. Okay, so June 23rd is our tentative time. Mrs. Rosario,
Hold on, I had comment before you said the date, and I think you may not have seen the comment. I also would like to remind the board that shortly after, if not almost immediately after we approve the strategic plan and the budget, we have to move into, and that would probably follow Dr. Moore's 100-day review plan, whatever he's going to provide for us, his evaluation. We have to approve and start discussing what that evaluation is going to look like, moving forward, when that will be, how we want it to tie into the strategic plan, and so on and so forth. So that's just as important, because when he provides next year's goals, that ought to be in there moving forward for the 2021 school year. The same thing with Mrs. D'Agresta's evaluation. What does that look like? When are we going to discuss, the legal counsel's evaluation and so on, and the timeline for that moving into the next year? I just don't want us to go into another year like we've done last year and not have these things in place. It keeps getting pushed off, and it's just, those are the things that I think are priority. So I want us to be able to do it the right way. And right now we're on that track, so I don't want to lose momentum with regard to that.
okay.
So maybe a little bit further. I just thought about it after.
So, question for Dr. Moore, your evaluation format's not yet been approved. So do you have a draft that you could submit to us?
Through the chair, when that time is appropriate, I think that's a conversation for the board as well as myself, aligned to what Ms. Rosario said, to the strategic plan. I think done correctly, every member of the organization's goals are tied to that strategic plan, solely focusing around student achievement. And that's the driving force. Some hesitation I would have in developing a system of evaluating is how are we evaluating student performance, and without a clear understanding as to what a learning gain is or how we're quantifying proficiency or lowest 25% under what has to be a new system of accountability, I would be hesitant to say, let's evaluate me on X, not clearly defining what X would be. I think that information will be available over the summer so we can plan
Right.
accordingly.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. As a follow-up, that's exactly my point, is that we can't do that unless we have the strategic plan, the budget in place, and all of that. And then we can move into what his evaluation would look like, and everybody else's, obviously, that's, his job. But this is where I was talking about momentum. So we're moving in that direction. It's not ready quite now, but that's the kind of thing that I don't want to get missed as we move into the summer, which would be in our June into July timeline, because if we're adding something else onto our discussion sessions, then those priorities will get pushed aside. So I just don't want us, not that it's not important, because it is, but I want us to stay on that right momentum.
Mrs. Justice?
You know, Mrs. Rosario brought up superintendent's evaluation. I've had questions for the superintendent, and I'm not sure if he will address them at some point, but there have been numerous conversations. What do teacher evaluations look like? What are those based on, right? So has there been discussion, have we, FSBA is a resource for us, and we are not the only school board that'll be looking at creating an evaluation for our superintendent without some of the data that we would normally use for student performance as a measure. So have we reached out to any of those organizations to ask them what other districts are looking at or thinking about doing, or if they are helping it and facilitating in any way? And then, you know, I've had a lot of teachers reach out to me just out of curiosity. You know, they want to know, how are they going to be evaluated for the work that they're doing? So, you know, you bring up superintendent evaluation, teacher evaluation, I would say is equally, if not more important right now, because it's something that affects so many people. And so, you know, Dr. Moore, will you be communicating as you find out answers to those types of things? You expect the FLDOE to give you more information as to as things change? I mean, I'm just curious what kind of information you're receiving from them. Or...
Well, through the chair, it is my responsibility and the expectation you should have of me to stay informed and connected to other superintendents across the state, which I do, as well as nationally, and I do that as well. The current conversation we are having with our teachers union are evaluations for this particular year. We're comfortable we will get how students will be scored into the summer, so we can plan accordingly and work with our unions regarding what evaluations will be moving forward. I was going to cover that during my closing comments. We are in those conversations now with our union. We will be bringing the student progression plan because we're not going to have end-of-year assessment. So there's a number of items very similar to the policies that we had to waive, or pieces of the policies that we had to waive today to conduct this meeting. There are pieces of the student progression plan, which is a policy that will ultimately have to be waived in order for us to calculate final grades without the final exams. So those are meetings that we are having now to bring to you an item that we have collectively agreed upon with the unions and ourselves, and then moving forward, we'll let that conversation take place so we can be informed to make the most appropriate decision.
Okay. Mrs. Berenborg, do you have a comment?
Yeah,
or
getting back
question?
to my request for a meeting date.
Yes.
All those things that you brought up are very important, and we do have meetings scheduled from now until whenever. But what I'm asking for is shouldn't be a very long meeting, I would hope, but it's just how to come up with who we're going to put on a committee and what the committee's going to do. So it's not like it's something long that we have to hash out. It's something that I just want to get the process started so that Dr. Moore's team can run with it.
Mrs. Ork, may I say something? Affordable housing, especially right now, Terry, I think this is something that I've been excited about and I can get behind. But right now, honestly, I don't even, I think, you know, I'm not sure how to say this. I think that some of the things that are going to happen in the next few months within our community may change some of the decisions, and with some of the banks, it may change some of the decisions we make in that type of a meeting. I mean, I think that the issue about affordable housing, where you don't agree with me at all. Okay. We work in development, so I just think that perhaps right now is a pivotal moment, and there may be some changes as far as land use or building space that might become available. This is changing the way people work, and it's anticipated that perhaps there will be some, is that what you want to talk about? I'm sorry. Okay.
Again, my point is, we're not making those decisions. The committee is going to hash all that out, and it'll probably take them a year. And they're going to hash all those things out within the next year and then present it back to us. But at some point, we need to get the committee decided on how we're going to just form it and what they're going to be tasked with. And that's all I'm asking to do. Is I'm just asking, let's figure out who we want on the committee and what we're going to task them to do, and then let them do that work that you're talking about, which will take, I assume, would take a year to do, at least. And I think, yes, you're right. There's going to be a lot of changes, but we're not making those decisions. What I'm asking for is just form a committee to look at that.
Can we tack on 30 minutes on a workshop, Mrs. Zork, or something where we can give time to this, or?
On June 9th, what time does that meeting start? 1? So we could, what about June 9th? We could start at noon, would be 1 hour prior to the workshop. Does that work? Oh, I'm sorry. You said it starts at noon?
Yes, your discussion session started.
Okay, today it started at 1, but I'm sorry, clarification. The meeting, Terry, would start at 11 for the affordable housing and our workforce housing, and then the workshop would start at noon. So we'll put that on the schedule for that.
Thank you.
Going back to Mrs. Rosario, let's finish up that conversation. With the superintendent's evaluation, that's not a short conversation. That might be something that we would have to look at having a special meeting, because we have a lot of work to get done in June. So
That certainly wouldn't be anytime soon. That's going to be
Right.
not long after. That would be shortly after we, officially approve the strategic plan, because this evaluation is going to be directly tied to that.
right.
So we
it-
have to wait until that. Yeah.
So it would be between the June 8th and June 23rd that we would have that special meeting for that, correct?
I hope
Sound
so.
right? Okay,
I hope so. I mean,
okay.
I see Dr. Moore is reaching into the mic. I mean, I do hope so, at least to begin the discussion about it.
If through the chair, I think, not having the crystal ball, I think that would be the appropriate time to start the conversation. I would certainly hope we have information from the state regarding how we're assessing students and how we're monitoring or measuring growth, which ultimately would deem the outcome. So as long as we have that information, then we're good to go.
Okay. So we have Mrs. Justice, who has, she has given her school board member matters. So let's go into the next school board member, Mrs. Rosario. School board member matters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have anything in terms of meetings to report. I am just working every single day, day by day, taking it day by day. Work for us here at home doesn't typically change because we're already homeschooling. So we're already in our, day-to-day routine. In fact, my son says, does anything change for me? I said, no, you're still in school. But I have provided some very few tidbits, not even that much, that Dr. Moore in the first Facebook Live kind of town hall events, he's sort of aired in there like little commercial bites on how parents at home can just be supported in this new normal. And as a homeschool mom, I'm glad that Mrs. Justice had somebody that she could reach out to. I have publicly stated I am open for anyone who has any questions, for support, for advice, for suggestions. I've said it in the little tidbits and the little commercial bites. The first thing that has to happen is you have to give yourself some grace. You have to give yourself some time to adjust as a parent to this new situation, to this new normal. And you are going to have highs and lows, and you are going to have days where you're going to be pulling out your hair. And then you're going to have days where you have those light bulb, heartfelt moments of, oh my gosh, my kid got it. And, God willing, you'll have those mountaintop moments more than you will have those valleys. But once you get there, it's really going to be awesome. And then by that time, we're probably going to be back at school. But when you get into those routines and when you get, ready or into that comfortable place where your family is able to wake up in the morning and get started with school on a regular basis and encourage your kids through their work and read through their work before they actually get started. They probably know more than the parents about navigating the computer system. But once you get there, it's actually really, it'll be smooth sailing at some point. So I encourage everyone to keep with it. This too shall pass. We're going to come to the end of this, hopefully sometime soon. And I'm here for everybody. I want to thank, again, Dr. Moore and everybody at the district level. And I especially want to thank the teachers and the principals and the assistant principals at the school level. Even more than that, I want to thank still our bus drivers and our cafeteria workers and everybody else who's involved in the mobile cafes. I had a conversation with Dr. Moore the other day, and I want to apologize to him. I broke down crying on the phone because, and board members know, I'm just such a sap when it comes to this. You talk about children with food, and I just can't take it because I worried that we changed this week's schedule to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with regard to, sending out food to the kids. Even though we were doubling up with them, the plan was to double up with them. I asked Dr. Moore to please look into that so that we would give kids the opportunity to receive food on a daily basis. And that's something that I'm not willing to, I'm personally not willing to look at any other option. It's my personal choice. But I did ask him to look into it just so that other board members will know. And of course, through my tears, it was just, I want kids to have a face-to-face contact with an adult on a daily basis and not have to worry about holding their food and hiding it because somebody in the household may take it. That's really, and that's where my tears came from. So I worry about these kids every single day. And I thank the parents that are there, the guardians, the grandmas, the grandpas, the aunts, the uncles. I thank, like I started with this comment, with the cafeteria workers making and packaging the foods and the bus drivers going out into the communities when everybody is being told to stay home and quarantine. Here we have our workers going out and feeding children. And there is nothing better than the heart for children. And there is no comparison with what our nurses and our doctors are doing. There is absolutely no comparison, but close to that would be those who go out into the community to do that for children. It's just, it warms my heart. So I just want to thank everybody. And if I've missed you, thank you, because you are involved in this as well.
Thank you. Dr. Schiff? Board member matters?
Yeah, I echo what a lot of my board members have said on thanks to teachers. I was going to do exactly what Mrs. Rosario just said on the food service staff and I think it's what Dr. Moore were over 80,000 meals served now, which is beyond extraordinary. So gratitude to everybody who is facing up in this brave and strange new world. When it comes to homeschooling, go to Mrs. Justice or Mrs. Rosario. Don't come to me. Me and every other parent in the district managing my teenager who, bless his heart, is getting up and doing his work in the morning. But yeah, homeschooling, not my jam. Have had a few, I want to acknowledge a couple of things in no particular order. I know that my fellow board members are aware, but we have not yet mentioned that it's Autism Awareness Month. I know my fellow board members, some of them are wearing blue. I purposely am not wearing blue. I'm actually wearing a different shirt I've been waiting all year to wear, which is from a very, very special coffee shop called Biddy and Bowes in Wilmington, North Carolina, that is run exclusively by differently abled people of all varieties. And it's one of the most amazing places I've ever been. So in the context of not simply autism, which I know we are paying particular mention to tonight, but I'd like to also include all forms of different ableism. And I don't know if you can see it, but my shirt says #NotBroken. And it is the direction in which I know this district is going. We do not treat children as if they are broken. We are an inclusive district that attends to all of our students, including those with autism and assorted forms of ability. So I just want to mention that, as I know my fellow board members have it in their minds if it didn't get to their words. Also want to acknowledge that many people are going through a variety of health challenges right now with social isolation and quarantining. I feel very blessed to live in the place that I do. I feel very blessed to be able to isolate here. I have friends and family in New York and New Jersey, and it's a nightmare up there. As somebody who is still blessed and privileged to be earning from 2 jobs I can do at home, I have been sending resources and care packages and money to organizations and people and hospital staff in New York, and having masks made and doing what I can. And I want to encourage all of us. Many of us are struggling with resources. Some of us are very blessed and privileged not to be facing that same kind of struggle. And I consider it my responsibility, certainly, and I hope others feel similarly, to pay it forward as best we can, because there may be a moment when we need it. So I have been doing what I can to pay it forward and send resources elsewhere. I don't mean that as a congratulate me. I mean it as an encouragement and out of love and support from my heart for those who are experiencing a variety of times and a variety of challenges in this time. I know for myself, I've had a few health challenges, and every time something happens, I'm worried that's it, it's the end, and it adds a whole other level of stress to the moments that we're in. So my heart goes out to all of you as parents, as teachers, as food service workers, as students, as children, as healthcare workers, as first responders. Whatever it is I can say now doesn't come anywhere near what I feel in my heart and the justice that you need and deserve for all you're doing right now. So from the bottom of my heart, I give that gratitude and pay it forward with resources where I can. I think that's about it. I think that's all I've got for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schiff. Mrs. Berenborg, do you have any?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I've attended a couple meetings virtually, and but the most interesting thing I did was last Monday. I did some Canvas support for some of our teachers, not because I did it through the district, but because they're friends of mine that were reaching out for help, because I've used Canvas before. And it can be a little tricky for a teacher moving from brick and mortar to online. And I know parents have been struggling with that, but it's also a struggle sometimes for the teacher. And it was kind of fun to be able to help some people that I know. And I hadn't used it in a while, so it was fun to get back in there and use Canvas. It's a great support. The 2 meetings I attended, one was the FSBA meetings. Those are going on Fridays. I don't know if you've been able to attend. They're really great. As a matter of fact, last Friday's meeting was about the funding issues that we're having and all the districts are having with school lunch program and trying to get those lunches and breakfasts and dinners out to kids. So that was a great conversation we had and some ideas for different funding sources for here. I attended today's Green Team meeting between our meetings, and that is an interesting group. It's a group of educators from our district and some principals, and also let's see, Susan Flack, who's the recycling coordinator for Indian River County. And what's interesting is they're working on different things that are going on throughout the schools, and they're doing them now, shifting them to virtual. For example, the field trips that were planned for the landfill, they're now trying to decide how to do a virtual field trip to the landfill. Earth Day activities they're going to try to do virtually. I mentioned in the past I used to do Earth Day for Dodgertown for years, and we had Garby come, and Garby's this little puppet guy. Well, they have a new one, and so we talked about maybe Dr. Moore having that character on there with somebody do a read aloud. So I did call Dr. Moore today in the middle of the day and tell him some of the ideas that this team has, that they want to do an Earth Day Challenge Week, April 20th that week, because Earth Day is the 22nd. So he was interested in that. And then the other exciting thing that they shared, well, a couple of things, was that we've now been accepted as a Green School State Silver status for our district. So that's an award, I guess, that's going to be coming to us. And more Mr. Machines are being purchased and water bottle stations for schools. So it's a really good little group. You're like me, you get these alerts to attend different things, and sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. That was a good one to attend for me. The other thing I wanted to just say, yes, I commend the teachers for their awesome shout outs. Not only are they teaching online, but they're doing these really cool things with posters and holding them up and, you know, telling their kids how much they miss them. I got to be part of I hate to use the word drive by, but we did a neighborhood drive through, wave at kids and honk, and that was really wonderful. I was tearing up at that. Commend the counselors on the way they're offering out supports for kids. Right now, you know, mental health is a huge issue. All the way, I mean, I'm struggling with this isolation thing. I know everybody is, and I'd just like to say thank you for all those things that are going out from them. Our administrators are coming up with very creative announcements and rallying their staffs to be very unique for their kids, and the district staff, and what a great job you're doing as supporting the teachers as they're doing this online work. And the cabinet, my goodness, look at all the stuff you put together, the curriculum, the data, the African American plan, financial reports, the impact fee, the auditing reports, the millage, the collective bargaining, you know, on and on and on. And thank you, because all of that comes under your leadership, Dr. Moore. So we appreciate all you're doing. I am wearing blue in honor of Autism Month. And I wish I had worn my t-shirt, though, on autism, so that would have been the perfect time while I'm home, maybe next meeting. And I'd just like to say thank you to all our first responders, because I know Dr. Moore's been putting out those enrichment weeks, and that's really cool, Dr. Moore. Thank you for doing that. And tomorrow I know we're going to be doing shout-outs to our first responders and our medical personnel, so I'd like to just say thank you to them and all that hard work. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you to the board members. This has been a unique meeting, but I think it was very successful. And I look forward to our next meeting on April 28th. And I too want to say thank you to Dr. Moore for his leadership. He has put together in such a short amount of time with his team of leaders this provisional plan, and it definitely is. I know we say it's a model for the nation, but it really is, because superintendents around the country are reaching out and getting advice from Dr. Moore and from our leadership team. So that's something that we all can be proud of, because we are a part of bringing in Dr. Moore. So thank you for that. I want to say thank you to our essential workers who are, you know, the clerks at the grocery store, obviously our doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, truck drivers, parents that are stepping up to the plate and helping at home with the homeschooling, distance learning. But today is actually the hero, community heroes, and I want to do a shout out to our teachers, because you have been my my hero over the last 3 weeks with my kids and trying to keep them on task with their learning at home. I know Mrs. Justice has 4, and my 3, I have a 5th grader, and my 9th graders are right on task, but definitely challenging at working from home, having a 5th grader. I will be in the other room trying to work, and he is supposed to be in the dining room working, and then when I get on a call and go back, he's actually across the street fishing. So I definitely appreciate the work that our teachers do. I've always have, but this is definitely that time that I miss having the availability of sending him to the classroom. One thing I want to also mention is Kristen has a list of activities that she's put together for this week. It's Spirit Week. During the information agenda area, I would like her to go through what we're doing this week, and then if you already have what we're going to be doing next week, kind of an idea and where they can go to get that information. One fantastic thing I think's been very beneficial are our Facebook Lives that Dr. Moore and staff has put on. I think they're very informative and keeps us up to date on timely information. So thank you for that. I did have a chance to go out on the mobile cafe, and I'm going to say that group of employees loves our kids, loves doing what they're doing, and I actually went out on a Friday. So Mrs. Rosario, something that you had brought up about having enough food. I'm going to tell you on that Friday, whenever the kids come to the bus and they got the food for Friday, it was enough for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'm going to tell you, they needed a little wagon to carry it away because it's such a large bag of food. And it was so cute to see these little 3- and 4-year-olds come up, and they literally had to drag that bag of food back to their house because it was just so packed with just nutritional snacks and drinks and food that can get them through the weekend. But with that, I am going to, before I turn it over to the superintendent's closing, I'm going to ask Mrs. Maddox if you would care to give us an update on what we're doing with Spirit Week and where people can go for more information.
Sure, thank you, Mrs. Zork. So, like we mentioned, Monday was our Wear Blue for Autism Awareness Month, and today was our Community Heroes Day, where we asked our SDRC families to send in pictures of thank you signs for our community heroes or dressed as a community hero, and we have received several of those, and by send in, I mean they're actually posting them to social media and using the hashtag SDIRC Spirit. And some people have been emailing those too, that's also great if you don't have a social media platform. Tomorrow is Workout Wednesday, so we're just encouraging everyone to find some time to get outside, get some fresh air, and just do some activities with your kids. You know, we've been doing some things in my family, old school, hopscotch, foursquare, that sort of thing, and it's really fun to kind of bring that back to your kids and teach them what games you played when you were in elementary school or middle school. Thursday is Crazy Hair and Sock Day. So you could do both of those things or one or the other. I think crazy hair is kind of coming more naturally these days because most of us are at home or working from home, so that should be an easy one for several of us. And on Friday, it is School Spirit Day. So wear your school shirts, wear your school colors, your athletic jerseys, whatever you have to show your school spirit. And we're really looking forward to just getting all these pictures, collecting them all. We want to do a couple of really great videos using them, especially our ones today for our community heroes. So please make sure to get all of those pictures in. And one of our other things we've been doing online is our online challenges. And one of our challenges for today is to submit your picture to socialmedia@indianriverschools.org. So email your community hero picture to us, and we will be taking a group of people who submit their picture and putting it on the Wheel of Opportunity to select someone to receive a generous donation from one of our local businesses or individuals in our community who's kind of just paying it forward and just bringing attention to our local businesses and supporting them as well.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I see a hand waving. I was going to turn it over to Dr. Moore for superintendent closings, but Mrs. Rosario?
No. Yes, I totally forgot. This is great. Okay, Principal Faust from Glendale Elementary School. I don't know if any of you have been following his Facebook page, where he starts every morning in alligator costume and little puppets with the morning announcements and so on. Well, it actually, one of those mornings that he addressed one of his students, former student, which I'm going to explain now, it ended up in the news. So I think it was Vero News who actually published it. A few months ago and a few years ago, up until a few months ago, a student that he had in his school, actually his parents moved here tentatively because his dad got a job here in the United States. And several months ago, they actually, probably around December time, a little after Christmas, they moved back to Italy. So the student that he had in his classroom, of course, Alessandro, moved obviously with his parents, Alessandro Melzi. And so this particular day, a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Faust, Principal Faust, recognized him and said, "Happy birthday." He's not a current student. He was a current student as of December. But he is currently not a current student. One of the reasons why I believe Mr. Faust recognized Alessandro and said, happy birthday, sang happy birthday with the puppets, is because Alessandro and his parents live in Milan. And obviously we know that in Italy, everything in Italy has been on lockdown. I've known Alessandro and his parents because they are dear, dear friends of our family. And before moving, they actually lived with my mom for the last month or two when they had to give up their apartment and so on and so forth. So, I mean, when I say dear, dear friends, I mean really, really dear. So I've known about their situation, that they have been on lockdown and been well. But I wanted to thank Mr. Faust because here is a principal who did not just focus on his current students, but actually recognized and has been in communication with Alessandro and his parents, even from Italy, recognized him and wanted to encourage him and let him know that because he couldn't have a birthday party, that his family at Glendale was recognizing him and singing happy birthday. And he played Italian music. That morning was the Italian theme. So I just wanted to thank Principal Faust for that on behalf of the Melzi family, and just recognize him publicly and wish Alessandro and his family, wish them well and wish them to be safe. And we miss them here in Vero. So I just wanted to publicly say that. And I'm sorry that I took more time, but I forgot about that.
Okay. Sorry, Dr. Moore, we're out of time for your
I
superintendent
know, right?
closing.
Oh,
No,
I'll condense them.
go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Just some brief updates, beginning with acknowledgements and praise and thanks. As we began this work just over a month ago, it was overwhelming regarding the shift, the change, the pivot of behavior, and how quick it had to take place. I couldn't be any prouder of the response by every member of the organization, the willingness to be flexible, the willingness to go above and beyond, the flexibility in being creative to define what is the best way to meet the needs of our students. The plan that was developed is not the same as to what every other district was doing, where they just looked, said, okay, let's do what they're doing. We paused, we evaluated, we came to the understanding that our teachers needed to continue to be the authors of instruction. They knew the realities, the learning realities of their students, and if they came to a quick understanding of that home reality, if they didn't already know that, and our plan was flexible enough to meet those two realities and bring them together, we can create an innovative space to continue learning in Indian River School District. And I believe that's what we have done. We are implementing a plan that, quite honestly, in my mind, I scheduled a 2-week pause for the best way of saying it, where I would fully commit myself to moving, supporting, creating, designing this work to ensure that it was meaningful in terms of the learning taking place at home. And at the end of the first week, in my own internal reflection of my work and the work of the team, the work of the district, it was time to cut that week short and continue to move the district forward because of how fast we responded to this new reality. We continue with this reality. We continue to grow the practice. We're continuing to support our teachers to shift and modify and own that space. So the provisional tool that we provided, building in development and training to better understand the resources and expanding the flexibility or offerings within those platforms to continue to build the technology resourcefulness of our teachers in this reality. Tomorrow we will start a 10-week development for our principals. And some have told me externally outside of the district, are you ready for that? Are your principals ready? Are your administrators ready? And the answer is yes. We need to take advantage of the opportunity to enhance the skills through investing in our administrators and principals to build their capacity. We have high expectations for not only what we're doing in this implementation, but we have high expectations for the work that lies ahead. So we begin that work of what lies ahead tomorrow as we kick off development for our assistant principals and principals. We will continue to provide updates to the board. You will be receiving a schedule from us that highlights the budget process as we know it today, in addition to the information that we reviewed today regarding the strategic plan. As mentioned before, the budget forecast does not look promising. It does not look promising. And we will need to be nimble. We will need to be proactive in order to ensure that we are designed in a way moving forward that best meets the needs of children. As a proactive measure, and I said it during one of my Facebook Live, we have frozen all spending. We have, if you're spending money, it needs to be approved. Hiring, although we weren't doing a lot and we had already frozen hiring, we continue to do that as a proactive measure to offset what could be moving forward in the future. So we continue to mine our budget to maximize resources for teachers, as I mentioned early, and looking forward to maximizing those funds for our teachers. But disheartened because in the midst of this reality and the ongoing impact that it's going to have, there is a level of uncertainty in a time that we need to be certain to make the most informed decisions possible. And that is frustrating, but that's the reality, and collectively we'll work together to get through that. I will be Facebook Living again Thursday at 10 a.m. And then on May 14th, it is in our plan that we are going to have follow-up meetings with the community. We'll be having a virtual town hall meeting, 6 p.m. in this auditorium to inform the community regarding where we are with our strategic plan, where we are in our budgeting process, the plans that we have, in terms of closing this school year, moving into our summer programming, what that will look like or what it will not look like, really being intentional of ensuring that our community is involved. We expect in the coming days a decision from the Department of Education regarding the next 15-day window. I don't anticipate that they would move forward and extend closing schools through the end of May. I anticipate them keeping them closed through May 15th. And then when we get to the point where we begin to return to normal, as we were phased into the CDC requirements from 1,000 to 500 to 100, now to 10, being 6 feet apart, we should expect something similar as we grow back into what was once the sense of normalcy. So we are including that in our thinking regarding summer programming and what that will look like, and being strategic as possible to design multiple platforms or pathways to access our summer programming, giving what could be the reality. Looking forward to bringing that information to you as a board moving forward. So we have done great work. I have said on multiple occasions, if I thought I was going to be managing this kind of reality 3 months, 3.5 months into my superintendency, there was something I could not have predicted. But I know it to be true by surrounding myself with absolutely outstanding, dedicated individuals. We have been successful. Individuals who are willing to debate and have the discourse regarding the actions that we need to collectively take to be best by kids, and willing to put in the hours, whether it be at home, whether it be at 4:30 in the morning, or if you're Greg McDonald, 3:30 in the morning, or 10 o'clock at night, if you're Miss Maddox, really continuing to problem solve, to work, to get us where we need to be as an organization. Absolutely outstanding, dedicated individuals. Our principals have been absolutely outstanding. They have managed a reality that they never could have thought of, created process, problem solved, defined problems, fully stood up as leaders and made decisions in complex environments. And that's what leadership is. And I am so appreciative of their willingness to step up and lead through this crisis. So I want to acknowledge their work. We have said it once, we need to continue to say it. Our teachers have really been at the forefront of this success. Their willingness to be flexible, to learn new systems and structures, to struggle through the creation of new behaviors. I've been trying to create behaviors for myself around my eating habits my entire life. And they have developed positive behaviors so quick and adaptive and flexible in changing and modifying those behaviors. And as scary as this reality is, at the end of it, we all will be better educators as a result. We will be a stronger community as a result. On a personal note, I couldn't be any more thankful that I am in this community in the midst of this crisis. As I grew up in Miami, my friends, don't have any family in Miami anymore now that my wife is here with me, but I have a number of friends, and to problem solve with them and hear the stress and hear the struggles and the disconnects some of those communities have had, I just hang up the phone with a smile on my face saying, I have been blessed to serve this community, this board, in this district. So very thankful to be here, to be in service in this complex time. So as I said, Thursday, mark your calendars, May 14th, 6 p.m., we're going to have a town hall meeting. Difficult times lie ahead as it relates to our budget, as it relates to a level of uncertainty. And there will be more questions in the coming weeks than answers. But we will continue to move forward. We will continue to problem solve. We continue to set a high expectation on where we should be at the end of next school year. And we say we should be the literacy capital of America. I 100% agree with that and believe in that. Dr. Schiff said we should be of the top 10 or 5. It's in the top 5. When you look at our academic performance, when you look at our reality, there is no excuse, there is no reason that we shouldn't make that bold movement to be one of the top 5 districts in this state. And that's saying a lot, but it can be done. We will not use this tragedy, this shift in global perspective as a crutch. We will problem solve, identify opportunities to learn through this, maximize those opportunities to shift and accelerate the change of behavior that leads to ongoing success for our students. So, very appreciative to be here. Thank everyone for their willingness to problem solve and stand up to be best by kids. As a board, each of you should take a great sense of pride in your leadership and your support, not only of me, of this district, of our teachers, of this whole crisis. We are managing crisis in a very effective way, and I hope that each of you find a great sense of pride in your leadership in this time. And moving forward, we will continue to do so. So with that, Madam Chair, those are my updates. A lot of work to do forward, but thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thank you for the closing. Typically, we don't have any comments, but this is a very unusual format. So I think Mrs. Berenborg had a question for Dr. Moore.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. I normally wouldn't do this, but I was texted and reminded again, and I saw it on social media several times, and I thought, you know what, now's the time to ask you. You did mention about when we're going to come back to school, possibly. I know you don't have a firm date. I guess the question is how, because I see on social media some parents saying, my child's not going to return this year. They're not coming back till next year. So keeping that in mind, you know, what's going to happen if you do have parents who say, my child's not coming back to the brick and mortar, they're going to stay out, you know, those are the things you might want to work through and come up with the plan for. So the big question is how, not when.
Absolutely. And part of that conversation begins with the when. I don't anticipate, in all honesty, that we will be returning this particular school year. It would be great if we could, under a structured return or a phased-in return. I just don't see that being likely given where we are as a state. We're still climbing, we're not declining. So until that decline begins to take place, we remain in this reality. We may be problem solving over the summer regarding a blended model or a staggered small return. Those are a level of uncertainty that we don't have yet. But once we have that information, we'll begin those conversations.
All right. Oh, opened up the Pandora box here. Dr. Schiff.
Actually, it was before you said it that
Okay.
and I will just say thank you, Dr. Moore, for acknowledging top 10, if not top 5, because when you first got here and I was saying that, kind of gave me the side eye. Like, I'm not so sure, not to commit to that yet. So I'm delighted to hear you say you see it in the realm of possibility, because so do I. My question for you is, and I'm sorry we're echoing, I took my headphones off. You mentioned the town halls, and would you just reach out to us through Deborah Powers, what way you would like us to show up and participate in those? If you would like us to be there electronically, I was certainly planning to observe and watch, but if you want us there in any other capacity, if we could just work out those arrangements, that would be great.
Absolutely, and we will. I tasked that out to Ms. Maddox yesterday, so she will be reaching out. We want something very big, very similar to the initial ones that I did, with some commercials and advertisements built in. So we have a plan, and we will be reaching out.
Okay. All right, so the work of the district continues, the work of this board continues. I appreciate everyone for joining us tonight. I see that Mrs. Cannon is still out in the lobby. Thank you for sticking this out with us, and we have one of our officers out there, and thank you for your service to the school district and our community, and all the staff that's here tonight. You are very, we thank you and appreciate each and every one of you, and look forward to the next meeting on April 28th. Have a good night, and we're going to adjourn this at 8:13.